Now it's time for Culture Talk, where we talk about culturally relevant topics you can use to share your faith. I'm joined today with theologian Ken Keathely. We are here to discuss the question, how do I deal with doubt? So Ken, thank you so much for being here today.
Ariana, glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here and we get to discuss the question, how do I deal with doubts? So the first question that I wanted to ask, because this is definitely something that Christians grapple with in their faith and their day-to-day living. So what are some practical ways one can navigate their faith while being challenged with doubt?
Yeah, when you say challenged with doubt, let's make sure that we are identifying it correctly, because if we're talking about a believer who is struggling with doubts, we're not talking about someone who's a skeptic, nor are we talking about someone who's dealing with anxiety. That's actually something that's very real and very different and needs to be addressed in a different way. But if we're talking about someone who is struggling with doubts, then again, first thing you want to do is listen to them a long time and very closely. What is it that they're struggling with? Is it that they're struggling with, is the Bible true? Are they struggling with, is Jesus really the Son of God? Or are they struggling with something like, okay, I grew up in a Christian home, my mom and dad are Christians. Am I a Christian just because mom and dad were Christians? Or am I had a very powerful adult conversion experience. What was that? Was that really me encountering God, or did I just have a profound emotional experience? Or it could be that there's other things that they're struggling with, like, how can someone who's living like me actually be really a Christian? Because I'm falling so far short of what a Christian should look like. So you have to listen and pay attention to what it is exactly that the person is dealing with. So once that's identified, and if a person is, really, well, I'm talking about me, I'm not talking about talking to somebody else, then you have to go through that and kind of do some self-examination. So that would be the first thing. Make sure we know what it is about doubt that we're struggling with. From there, what I would say is that we look at the certain resources that we have available. If we're talking about intellectual doubts, how do I know that something is true? If you're, how do I know I can have confidence in the Bible or have well, here's where Reasons to Believe has such excellent resources on the existence of God, or how one can have confidence in the Bible. If we're dealing with intellectual doubts. If we're dealing with something that is more of an emotional doubt, here's where a person, you hear the expressions deconstructing their faith or deconverting. And we have sometimes where people are fearful that that's what I'm doing. Just remember this. The opposite of doubt is not faith. The opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is sight. A life of faith is something that deals with doubt as a normal process. In fact, I would argue that every Christian, as they go on the journey of faith, sooner or later is going to have what Martin Luther called the dark night of the soul, where you find out, do I really believe this? Am I really a follower of Christ? And it's a pretty grueling emotional experience. It's a travail. What I would say to anyone who is going through that, and that is to say, don't fear, don't live in fear. There are great resources available from brothers and sisters who have gone on this journey before, such as Reasons to Believe, and most of all, go to the Gospel of John. John wrote, he said, "These things have I written, that you may know that Jesus is the Christ, and that you may believe, and by believing you may have life." And so the very purpose of the Gospel of John is to help someone who is struggling. Is this true? Is Jesus the Christ? And I would just finish what I'm saying in John chapter 6, where so many of the disciples quit following Jesus. Jesus preached a very tough sermon, and it says a whole lot of them went away. And Jesus said to the 12, "Will you go away also?"
Yeah.
And Simon Peter said, you have, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life.
Right, right.
And so what I would always say, ultimately, make sure about your relationship with Jesus Christ. And there's where the Gospel of John is so important.
Right. Thank you for that. In your area of study, in your years of experience in ministry, has there ever been a time where you've doubted your faith in God?
Oh, sure. I think that, like I said, not long after my conversion at age 17, it was a fairly profound conversion experience. And so within about the first year after that, I asked myself, well, am I believing this because I want it to be true? Because I do want it to be true.
Right.
Okay, so do I have a really bad case of confirmation bias? So is it real? Here's where I found great resources. This is decades ago. And so Josh McDowell had a book, Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And I remember just devouring it and reading it and realizing, no, we have a reasonable faith. And so it is a faith, but it's faith seeking understanding. And that what we find is that within the Christian faith, it does meet profound needs. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting it to be true.
Right.
But it could turn out that the reason that we want it to be true is because it's what we desperately need. And it meets needs in a profound way that nothing else can. So yes, I have experienced, and I think that, like I said, I don't hardly know of a mature Christian that hasn't in one way or another gone through what we're talking about.
And I like that you mentioned a mature Christian, because I feel like to reach a level of maturity in your faith, you have to go through so many experiences and like those moments of doubt, those moments of healthy questions that you've mentioned. Another question for you: what do you think is the balance between having questions, questioning God, being doubtful, and strengthening your faith at the same time? Where's that middle ground?
I think that both of them can be very vigorous and healthy as long as someone is doing what the Christian life teaches, and that is you keep seeking after God. Look at the Psalms. If you notice, there is this very healthy worship of God, but there's other Psalms where those are letters of complaint, and
so true.
and despair and despondency, and like Psalm 13, where are you, Lord? Will you forsake me forever? And you have Psalm 73 where the psalmist says, I'm not sure why I'm doing this. Every time I do the right thing, it doesn't pay off for me. I've got neighbors, they're as wicked as the day is long. They're doing fine. And he said, when I tried to think about this, it was too painful for me. So you have, I think the Psalms give us permission to be real. The one thing I don't think we have to worry about is that we have to convince God that we believe in him. I think it's okay to take your doubts to God on your knees and say, God, right now I'm not sure you're up there. And I'm not sure any of this is true. All I know is I am willing to have you in my life. I'm willing to have you reveal yourself to me. I'm willing to follow you. And that's what I always say whenever someone's struggling. If you knew reasonably, confidently enough that Jesus has risen from the dead and that he is the Christ, would you follow him? No matter what. And that's really we are called to follow Christ.
Right. So it's like that balance is just having that understanding that we have permission to ask questions. We have permission to be doubtful. And that's just the beauty of having a relationship with God, is that there's room for all of our feelings, all of our emotions, including doubt. And that's such a beautiful way to describe how to deal with doubt. And I thank you for your answers, your perspective, your insight on that. And I just want to say thank you for being here and giving us your time. And if anybody would like any more information on the topic that was shared today, please feel free to visit reasons.org/Ken Keathely, and you will find all the information you need.